Now, let's go through some of the objectives. First of all, I just want to give an overview of what is the menopause, but also the perimenopause, right? And including definitions, of course. And also then discuss how would you approach it, because in many cases our patients may come into us for hormone replacement. But what do we do if we just replace their hormones? What ends up happening? Well, if your patients are anything like mine, at least in the beginning, what would happen is I would balance their hormones and they'd be doing okay, maybe for 3 to 4 months, maybe a little longer. And then all of a sudden they would come back and say, you know, I'm kind of having some of those symptoms again. So then what do? So what I do now is I really look at everything that's going on with them, try to get to the root cause. We may fix their hormones because that is the reason why they came in, and I am really big on addressing the chief complaint, even if that's not necessarily the area that I see is most important, because that's what brought them to me. But then we're also going to work and sort of fixing the terrain, really looking at what has happened in their life so far and what else is going to impact their bioavailability of their hormones and the ability for them to get rid of their symptoms. And also, too, we start to learn how things are connected to each other. You know, Dr. Smith always talks about how it's a hormonal symphony, right? And we have this sort of web of interactions with our hormones, but also with other things that we do in life in general. And so that's what I sort of call my diagnostic framework, and then I have a few case studies for my patients that I will review with you. I think the number one thing that we should be focused on is personalizing your approach, right? That's what we're really here to learn. It's personalized medicine. It's what's going to make you unique in your area. It's what's going to draw patients to you because you do things a little bit differently, and you personalize it so that it's not the same for every patient you see. It's individualized and it's personalized, and that is going to make your approach unique. Because our patients are going to be, and we as well, are all in this health continuum, where if you have wellness on one end and you have illness on the other, most of our patients are going to be along the continuum, somewhere in between, right? And they're going to maybe along that line, sometimes hopefully closer to wellness than to illness, but you just don't know necessarily where they're going to be mostly at until you really start to dig deeper, really look at their history. Use all the clues that you possibly can from your physical exam. Sometimes we have to go back and learn the physical exam skills that we never learned in the beginning. I didn't really learn to rely on my clinical skills until I worked in the third world, and I was in a very isolated area with really not many recourses, and so I had to go back and learn. And many times then, even now, I'm constantly learning because I'll realize, okay, what's a physical sign that I can find on physical exam that may give me an idea of some underlying issue or underlying problem. So just remember that even though patients may not come in with a lot of complaints, they may be somewhere along this continuum where there's already some dysfunction, even though they may not have an illness or an ICD-9 code. And the earlier that you catch them, the easier it is to reverse. Because it's all about the gene-environment interaction. That's how we personalize our approach. But we know that are genes really the end-all? No, not necessarily. They're contribute to about 20 to 25% of the problem, but the 75 to 80% is really about the environment. What do you bathe those genes in? That is really what makes us unique and each person walking around different. And although I still think that in mainstream medicine there's still a big sort of focus on, oh, it's probably genetic and there's nothing we can do about it. You and I know that that's not necessarily true. We may not be able to change our genes, but we can change gene products. We can bypass certain single nucleotide polymorphisms to give the patient what their body's not able to do. And that's what's going to make you different. It's what's going to make your approach unique. This is what many different researchers have been talking about. It's all about biochemical individuality. And although it was first originally coined by Roger Williams, it has been discussed and reviewed and researched by different researchers. This is one on for Dr. Bruce Ames, who talks about, I just want to review a little bit what he says, that our analysis of metabolic disease that affects cofactor binding, particularly as a result of a polymorphic mutation, so a single nucleotide polymorphism, may represent a novel rationale for high-dose vitamin therapy. Sometimes you do need to do higher doses, but sometimes you need to give the activated vitamin, for example, or nutrient that you may need. I'm talking about, for example, MTHFR, right? Methyl tetrahydrocannabinol folate reductase deficiency, where whether you're homozygous or heterozygous, you may need more of the activated folate. And I don't think that the answer is to necessarily give high doses of folic acid because it's synthetic, but to give what your body can't do, which is the activated folate. It's also been discussed with respect to cardiovascular disease and cancers. Same thing, it's all about the gene-environment interaction. You may have a genetic predisposition, but it's all about the environment that you sort of